A look into my past may reveal a glimpse into your own future. And then we take a look at the story of a boy who has it all. His own bedroom in the basement of a house. What more could a 12-year-old ask for? But little does he realize his basement abode will soon have a new resident. One that desperately wants to stay there. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys have some awesome plans for the weekend. My weekend is jam-packed. I hope you guys have some great plans as well. We got a lot of stuff to cover today, so first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Tab and Keegan. Woohoo, yeah, they're reluctantly coming in. They were our pilots. Yesterday's necrophilia special. I'm actually talking to these guys, Keegan and Tab. I think we should start our own podcast called The Necrophiles. You're like, are you? No, we're not actually necrophiles. No. It's like necrophiles, F-I-L-E-S. I have to explain it to everyone I meet. No, officer, no, I swear I'm not a necrophile. Those two guys might be, but I'm not. It's supposed to be like the X-Files, but it's the Necrophiles. No, we're not actually going to do that podcast, but that's a great name for a podcast. You're like, yeah, if you want to get arrested, if you constantly want to be chased out of town. Tab and Keegan, let's go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to toss you guys the keys to the Jason Jalopy. Everyone climb on board this lovable old hunk of junk as Tab and Keegan drive us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way out to Sacramento, California. This is going to be kind of a short episode. You're like, yeah, let me guess, you're sick? Yeah, but it's actually different than that. So I have a bit of the stomach flu, and I know I sound perfectly healthy, right? The measure of health. I should be in an Atlas journal or something. But just my voice, not the way I look, obviously. I look very unhealthy. I do have a bit of the stomach flu. The problem is that I'm also on that weight loss shot. So it's like in there longer. The flu's in there longer. It's like setting up residence. I think it's building a little house in there. It definitely feels like there's some construction going on in my stomach, I'll tell you that. Yeah, apparently because I don't understand why they wouldn't make me throw up any less. Because it's the way my bowels are empty. Is what it slows your digestion. It's one of the effects. It actually does all sorts of crazy things to your brain and to your insulin levels and how you just burn fat. It's a fascinating drug to be on. But yeah, so I mean, everyone has been complaining about this 24-hour bug going around. I'm like on hour 72 and I'm pretty miserable. I'm recording this episode a lot later than I usually do, and it's going to be short because I just don't feel that great. But yeah, so that's where we're at right now. And I always say it's going to be short, and then you look and you see the episode's like 48 minutes or an hour long or whatever. I can never get it short as I would like when I'm not feeling good. But we're headed all the way out to Sacramento. I wanted to tell this story because it's short, and I wanted to tell this story because a couple of you guys messaged me about it. It's something I brought up, I think, like a week ago, maybe even this week, early in the week, and I got more than one email. People going, what are you talking about? How is that even possible? I'm going to give you some tips and tricks, and I'll tell you this, they're all legal, and I committed zero fraud, which you know you're in for a pretty good story if those disclaimers are in the front of it. But seriously, I did not commit any fraud at all. We're down in Sacramento, California. Tab and Keegan driving us down to Sacramento, California. That's where the story starts. I used to work at this. I've done retail pretty much all my life. I love retail. I love customer service. But, usually I'm like a salesman. I'm usually a salesman. And I'm actually generally a pretty good employee. But as time goes on, sometimes my antics would, I wouldn't say get the best of me. Because I never really got fired from it. I got fired from one job. And that was, I was supposed to put up signs on the side of the road. And the only job I've ever gotten fired from, at least I can recall. I got a job putting up signs on the side of the road. I don't know how prevalent these are in other parts of the world or even other parts of the country. But new housing development goes up. You'd see these signs saying, Somerset Housing, take a left. And they'd be like, dotting the roadway on the side of the road. Not that you got fired because you were putting them up in the middle of traffic. But the law is that you could only put them up Friday after 6 p.m. and you had to take them down by like Sunday at 6 p.m. or something like that. Well, I got the first part right, put them up, but then I forget to take them down for whatever reason. And the company I worked for got fined multiple times by the city, so they finally fired me. That was the only job I ever got fired from. To be fair, rightfully so. I cost them a lot of money. But anyways, most of the time I work retail, most of the time it was a sales job. And, I'd work a sales job in an electronics store for a while. One of the fastest promoted people in Best Buy history. When I don't know if that record still stands, but at the time, everyone's like, woo, clapping. But then I started a fight club in the install bay, in the audio install bay. I was just up to no good. Well, I was still a good employee and a good manager. But, I was also beating people up. I was beating up my coworkers. I was like, hey, let's settle this in the arena. We'd close the shutters of the audio install bay and fight. And then, we'd have fight out in the parking lots, too. I'll put that episode in the show notes that talked about the fight club in the parking lot of Best Buy. But I don't know if I actually said where I worked on that episode. But then, I worked at another electronics store, a couple electronics places, music stores and stuff like that. But then I got a job. I'm not going to say where this job was, but I got a job at this retail establishment. And at one point, they said, hey, Jason, can you take this pallet of, I don't even know what was on the pallet, boxes of pillows or boxes of blankets or whatever. It was like one of those type of retail establishments. It wasn't one of the cool ones. Hey, can you take this pallet of product out to the sales floor? I said, yeah, sure, whatever. Now, I had never used the pallet jack before. You guys might be familiar with it. It's basically like a wagon. It has the physics of a red wagon, but it weighs a lot more than a red wagon. I'll tell you that. I definitely learned that very quickly. But I never really used the red wagon either. I mean, I'd see people do it in movies, but I never had a wagon when I was a kid. So anyways, I loaded up this pallet jack. I put the pallet jack into the pallet and had all this stuff on top of it. And you pump it a couple times and you start walking around with the pallet jack. Now, what I did not realize is, you can push a pallet jack. You're like, Jason, this is super boring. Why don't you just take the night off if you're not feeling good? Well, okay, hopefully it's not too boring. And I think you'll learn something, too. Not just about me, but it might help you. It might affect you someday. You can push a pallet jack or you can pull a pallet jack. And, I didn't know. I mean, obviously I knew you could do those things, but I didn't understand how pallet jacks worked, basically. So I was pulling the pallet jack, because I had never used one before this moment. All my years of retail, I'd never used the pallet jack. I was pulling this pallet jack through the store, and I stopped. So I stopped to say something to somebody, and I didn't realize that the pallet jack itself would continue to move towards me. I didn't understand how it would work. Jason, you're an idiot. Are you seriously saying that this is... I mentioned earlier last week that I ran over my own foot with a pallet jack and got tens of thousands of dollars because of it. Is this how you did it? Yeah, I mean, I didn't do it on purpose. It hurt a lot. I stopped to say something to someone. I didn't realize the pallet jack would keep moving towards me, and it did. And it ran over my foot. But I will say this. Legally, it ran over my foot. It did. But when I say that, people go, oh my God, you had a big thing of steel? You had this giant contraption that weighs hundreds of pounds? Crush your foot? No, luckily. So, the way that the pallet jack works is it'll continue to move forward, but only so far. Eventually, it'll lock into place, but, I didn't realize any of how this stuff is going to work. So it ran over my foot, but really what it did was it crashed into the side of my foot. I always say it ran over. It makes it sound so much worse. But it crashed into the side of my foot. So it didn't actually go over my foot. I didn't have like a flat Looney Tune foot. But it slammed in the side of my foot, and I go, ow! Ow! Ah! And I'm looking down, and I was like, what just happened? People are like, you were using a pallet jack. And I go, yeah, I get that, but I stopped. Shouldn't the pallet jack have stopped? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, my foot. Now, when I talk to people up in Oregon, they always find this super alien. I immediately reported the incident, which is what you should do at any workplace, no matter how big or small the injury is. I said, hey, I ran over my own foot with this pallet jack. And my boss is like, what? And I go, my foot hurts. Now, to be fair, I didn't like this job. I didn't really like this job that much. I was looking for any reason to go home. I was constantly like, there's too many pillows in here. I'm a pillowphobic. Can I go home? I ran over my own foot. I told my boss, I'm like, oh, no, I'm too scared to take my shoe off. It might be all gory and spooky. I need to go home. And my boss is like, yeah, fine, go home. You ran over your own foot. He's like, you expect to see blood and bones sticking out? I keep saying I ran over my foot. I hit my foot. But anyway, so I was like, can someone help me out to my car? Can somebody please here? I'm laying on the pallet jack. I was like, my worst enemy has become my best friend. Can someone pallet jack me out to my car? Anyway, so this is what you do in California. I realized I injured myself, and I realized I injured myself at work. So I know we're going to do this whole workman's comp thing, because I could tell this was a pretty serious injury. Yes, my foot did not get ran over, but it hurt a lot. And I realized that I've never been trained on how to use a pallet jack. Now, for years, my friends and my family made fun of me over this. You ran over your own foot with a pallet jack, and your complaint was you've never been trained on how to use a pallet jack. And I go, I've never used one in my life. Ever. They have safety training. And they didn't offer it to me. No one had ever offered it to me. Because every other job I'd been at, they didn't have me move stuff. It was just pretty basic stuff. Jason's really good with the customers, but not with other stuff. I worked one sales job, one retail job. It wasn't a lot of sales, but a lot of retail, where my boss said, hey, they need help over in this department. Can you help them? I go out there, and the manager goes, hey, yeah, I got all this stuff handled, but you know how to put together a barbecue? I don't know if I've told you guys this story before. I go, how hard can it be? How hard can it be to build something? How hard can it be to build something that could easily blow up if it's put together wrong? I was like, sure, I can put together a barbecue. I said, well, I'll figure it out, right? I didn't claim I knew how to do it, but I knew that job would require me to sit down for a long time. So I sat down, I started putting together this barbecue, and I'm, following the instructions and stuff like that. It's not the easiest thing to follow. And I'm hooking it all up. Maybe like an hour later, the manager comes over. He's like, you done with the barbecue yet? No, I wasn't. I was definitely taking my sweet time because I got to sit down. He walks over, and this is a true story. He walks over and he goes, are you done with that barbecue yet? And I'm like, no, boss, I'm still working on it. And he looks at it. He goes, dude, wait, what? What? And I was like, what's going on? He goes, you put it together upside down. And I look at him and I go, I'm following the instructions. He goes, look at this. Look at it. He goes, I don't even know how this is possible. It was like all of a sudden some Cthulhu level horror to this man who had probably assembled 1,000 barbecues in his life and millions of other things on top of that. He's looking on that. He goes, how did you do that? How did you do this? And he's trying to figure out how to take it apart now. So this is what I had put on upside down. Like the grill was upright. It wasn't like the flames were shooting down. It's like a rocket ship. It's all. I put a part of it on backwards that the propane tank would be attached to. And backwards probably isn't the right word. It was upside down. And he's sitting there and he's looking at it. He goes, how did you even manage to get this attached to this upside down? He goes, Jason, do you understand what this part is? And I didn't, right? I obviously didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, the metal part? He's like, yes, you idiot. It's all metal. But anyways, this is the part where the propane tank is attached to the barbecue. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And he goes, it means that if I had sold this to somebody who didn't know what they were doing, the propane tank is supposed to sit in place. He goes, if you did it this way, it would be dangling like an apple off a tree. And he's like pushing on the metal, it's all bouncy. He goes, it's not supposed to do that. This is supposed to be at the bottom. You're supposed to have the propane tank stabilized. He goes, if someone hooked the propane tank up to this and it was bouncing around, he goes, it would have blown up. And I go, oh, okay, I didn't know that. I don't know anything about barbecues. He said, it's going to take me twice as long now to disassemble it and to reassemble it, Just go somewhere. As I'm walking away, I stub my toe. I'm like, I need to go home. I have a barbecue to go to. I'm not good at building things. I'm not good at physical things. I'm not good at physics or momentum or really anything like that. My family always made fun of me. I don't know how to use a pallet jack. They didn't train me how to use a pallet jack. I don't have an instinctual knowledge of how pallet jacks work. Maybe if my parents had bought me a red wagon, all of this could have been avoided. But anyways, if I remember the sequence of events, this was like 20, almost 30 years ago now. I filled out the incident report, realized as I'm driving home, my foot, I'm bandaged up. I got a big bandaged foot. It's sticking out the window of my car. I was like, please, just let me pass. I need to get home quick. They didn't train me how to use a pallet jack. So after I got home that day, I started calling up workman compensation lawyers. Because I realized I was probably going to need one. And, workman comp lawyers, I know in California it's the law. It's also the law in Oregon, but I don't know how widespread it is across the United States. They only take 20% of your settlement. A regular lawyer can take half of it, if not more. Workman's comp, they're capped at like 15, 20%. And I called up work because I'd sued a company before that. You're like, how did you know that detail so quickly? How did you have workman's comp lawyers in your speed dial? I'd sued, I forgot what other company I sued before, but this wasn't the first time this wasn't the first time I had to sue a company. Called up a workman's comp lawyer and I go, hey, I ran over my own foot with a pallet jack at work. They didn't train me how to use a pallet jack. So what's the next step? And you can basically hear the lawyer's eyes go ka-ching, ka-ching, little dollar signs appear. And yeah, even though like my bosses made fun of me, they're like, really, you're suing us? Because I go, first off, I'm not suing you. I'm suing your insurance company. So calm down. Secondly, yes, I am, because you had me use something that I wasn't trained to use. Oh, yeah, everyone knows how to use that. Here's easy putting together a barbecue. I was like, oh, that's a weird comment to make. Maybe someday in the future I will put together a barbecue and realize you are wrong. But anyways, no, I sued him. And the way that it worked was actually like perfect timing because I got a pretty good cash settlement. Like just raw cash, about $7,000. Which back, in early 2000s, that was a lot of money. But more importantly than that, I remember talking to my lawyer and he goes, hey, so they have this thing, right? Oh, so this is what happened. I ran over my own foot. And my workman's comp guy goes, okay, I'm going to send you to my doctor. He's going to check your foot out. What had happened was I severed a nerve ending in my foot. And it did cause a lot of pain, even to this day. That's what I'd mentioned on that previous episode. I think I'd made a mention to my foot hurting. To this day, 20, 30 years later, I'll still get nerve pain in my foot. It definitely is bad. I mean, I can walk. I just want to sit down and, sit on a pallet jack and get pushed around town like a king, a $7,000 king. There's still damage to it, but I went to the doctor and the doctor goes, okay, yeah, no, you have nerve damage. He did some tests. He gave me this drug. He's like, hey, start taking these pain pills. They're the newest thing on the market. You're going to feel great. So basically, with the doctor agreeing with the nerve damage and my lawyer saying, weren't trained in this, we ended up suing the company, and no one got fired over it. It wasn't a big deal. You sue the insurance company. It's nothing personal. I got $7,000, but then at the time in California, I don't know if this is still a thing, they had a retraining program. And the lawyer goes, so this is going to be part of the settlement. They are going to give you $7,000 cash. They're going to pay you $1,200 a month for the next couple of years. And... That's a ton of money, Jason. So yeah, they pay me like $1,200 a month for probably like 3 or 4 years. And at the end of that, I got $7,000 cash. And then, at the time, California, and they might still have this, had a retraining program. So what it was they said they're going to pay you a living fee while you retrain in the occupation of your choice. And I'm sitting there and I go, well, I really like customer service. Unfortunately, I can no longer stand. The lawyer's like, you can cut it out. You don't have to cry in my office, okay? Patient lawyer confidentiality. I was like, okay, I'm going to do a little tap dance. I'm going to do a little dance on his desk. No, my foot really did hurt and does to this day. But he goes, I go, well, I kind of just want to do retail. And he goes, so you don't want to take up a trade or nothing like that? I was like, no, not really. He goes, well, are you interested in going to college? And I go, oh, Okay. So at the time, I had gone to community college and then dropped out. Because, I just didn't have the time for it. It was dirt cheap. It was $17 a unit back when I was in college. But, I was busy being a knucklehead. And I go, you know what? I don't have my AA. I'd love to get it. He goes, yeah, they're not going to pay for your bachelor's degree. But if you want an AA, sure, associate's degree, they'll pay for it. So basically for the next 2 or 3 years, because I took my time in community college, I was in no rush to go anywhere, right? I was getting $1,200 a month or whatever. They paid for me a monthly paycheck, and they paid for all of my schooling, all of my books, everything like that, until I got my AA, which I think was just 2 years maybe, or 2.5 years again, because I was kind of just, going to school. I love going to school. Yeah, in the end, they gave me $7,000 because I ran over my own foot with a pallet jack, which again was not fraudulent. I did hurt my foot. And it hurts to this day. I think one of the most interesting parts of that story, other than the fact that you're like, Jason, wow, come on, you got like between $24,000 and $36,000 just sitting around going to community college for 2.5 years, and you said you dropped out, which means that you had gone for how many years before that? Yeah. It's a crazy story. But my doctor, let's go back to my doctor. He was a nice guy. But he's like, there's this new drug on the market. It's the best painkiller in the world. Here, take some. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was called Vioxx. And he's like, this is a new anti-inflammatory. It's totally safe. He was the one, I've quoted this multiple times to people over the years, and it is true. I fact-checked it. He told me, we're sitting there. He said, I go, my foot hurts. What can I take for it? And he goes, don't take ibuprofen. And I go, what? He goes, you know how many people die of AIDS each year in America? I was like, it's kind of a weird segue conversation. Does it have to do with my foot? Does my foot have AIDS? Oh, doctor, please tell me no. Doctor goes, you know how many people die of AIDS in America? And I go, no, right? I didn't know that back then. He said 300,000 people. He goes, do you know how many people die of ibuprofen overdose? Not even overdose, just ibuprofen overuse. I go, I don't know. And he said 300,000. He goes, a ton of people are dying from ibuprofen. And he goes, it's not that they're taking huge amounts. It's really bad for your stomach. It can cause stomach bleeding. And then he goes, by the time you realize that you're bleeding in your stomach, it's already too late. So he goes, they make this new drug. It's the same thing. It's an anti-inflammatory, but it's safe. It's called Vioxx. He wrote me a prescription for it. And I remember this because this was the first time I'd ever seen anything like this. This is early 2000s now I think about it. I never seen anything like this before. And I go to the doctor all the time. He writes me a prescription for Vioxx, and I remember in the moment, I remember watching this happen. He picks up a notepad that's a Vioxx notepad. It's like branded Vioxx, and he reaches for a pen, and it's a Vioxx pen, and he clicks it and starts writing down the prescription. This was back in the day where you took a paper prescription to a pharmacy. And I thought, that's weird, but I didn't know, right? I didn't know about pharmaceutical companies paying doctors and a lot of free stuff to get them to prescribe their medicine. And I'm not accusing Vioxx of doing this. They might have, but I also didn't know at the time that pharmaceutical companies would, because they can't pay a doctor to give prescriptions of their stuff. That's illegal. They can give them free stuff. They can even give them like free trips, free vacations, things of great value. Hey, you're a good doctor. You're a doctor. You work in our pain industry. How would you like a trip on us to Cancun? Whether or not you prescribe the drug, we're not worried about that. We're just helping you out. We're doing it to all the doctors. Maybe some prescribe our stuff, maybe some don't. I don't know. But I remember in that moment, I go, that's odd. He's writing me a prescription for a drug with the pen and the pad for that very drug. But I just, thought, it did stick with me. Turns out Vioxx was eventually taken off the market because it killed a bunch of people. Vioxx did end up getting banned. It caused some sort of blood disorder or something like that. Yeah, it would cause an increase in heart attacks, strokes. And actually, I'm looking over the Wikipedia page. It was recalled in 2004. See, I have a hard time knowing the years of when stuff happened. So this was definitely like, all of this stuff must have been happening in like 2000, 2001, maybe 1999. It was when I had the whole lawsuit. It was the biggest drug recall in history. when they had to pull all this Vioxx back because it was giving people heart attacks. I thought that was interesting because the doctor was like, this is safer. And I don't think he was lying to me, but he thought it was. At least that's what he'd been being sold. So you go, Jason, okay, so that's an interesting story of how you roll your eyes at the word interesting. I just looked over at the time. We're 27 minutes in. I'm trying to make this episode short, but you go, Jason, that's an interesting story, but you said, how can it affect me? Well, I'm going to give you some tips just in case you ever got to sue. Really anybody. Because, you always hear in the news about, someone, gets injured on the job. They said that their back hurts and they can't move. They're perfectly still. They're like, this is me now, boss. I'm just this guy on the ground. I can't move. And then eventually that guy gets caught dragging a boat up to his hitch on his car. How strong is this guy? Was it a canoe? No, it was a full-size boat. He's actually stronger after the accident. The back of 1,000,000 men. You see that pop up in the news about fraud and things like that. And that's wrong. I will never, ever, ever suggest that you commit any sort of insurance fraud. But I'm going to give you a couple tips because I know the other side of it. You could be completely legit and what companies will do to trip you up. Like, your claim is legit. My claim was legit. Like I said, I still have pain to this day. Here's some tips, right? Jason, we're never going to need these. Well, hopefully you won't. A lot of times the insurance company will call you up, right? The lawyer will go, and this is not legal advice, but the lawyer will tell me, he told me this was legal advice to me. He goes, the insurance company's going to call him up. He goes, just be honest, but they're going to try to trip you up, type of thing. That was pretty much all of the advice he could give me. And I've had a lot of these phone calls over the course of my life. Sometimes it's car insurance, sometimes it's insurance because I've gotten injured. I've been injured at a lot of jobs, honestly, but there's been just a few times where I've had to sue. They'll call you up and here's the first question. They'll ask you, hey, how are you doing? And if you say, I'm doing great, I'm doing good, which may be true, right? That's how usually most people say anyways, because we don't want to burden the world with our problems. Walking through your work and a coworker goes, hey man, how's your day going? You'll go, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, how did I start off this episode? I'm having a great day. I have the stomach flu. I don't feel good. I actually feel pretty gross. If you say, I'm doing great, I'm doing good, they mark it down. They mark it down and they say the person is feeling quote unquote great. He's feeling quote unquote good. And they'll use stuff like that against you. It's very much like talking to a police officer. You have to be very careful what you say. Now, you want to be honest. Don't lie, because they'll trip you up. And if they catch you in a lie, they can completely dismiss your claim. But if every time they call you, you say, I'm doing great, they will use that against you. They'll say, every time we called him, he said he was doing great, so we figured he was doing great. We don't think he needs this settlement or this much of the settlement. The other thing they do, and this has tripped me up more than once. This might sound a little... there might be a bunch of different words to describe this, but I've had quite a few of these insurance phone calls, these agents calling me up to get my side of the story. And they're not my insurance agent. It's not my lawyer, it's not my doctor, or car insurance is not my car insurance company. It's, I don't know if this is the right term, but adversarial side. It's the people I'm suing's insurance calling me up. More than once, like I said, I've had many of these phone calls through my life. It's a very pretty girl calling me. Now, I don't actually know if she's pretty, but she sounds pretty. And it took me maybe 3 calls to not 3 calls during the same issue. These were 3 separate suits that I had. And honestly, if you asked me to name who they were, I don't remember. I've been involved in a lot of lawsuits, basically. But the first time it happened, I didn't take note of it because I didn't know. The second time it happened, I still didn't take note of it because I didn't know. But the third time that phone rang, because my lawyer said the insurance company is going to be giving you a call, so just be cautious. And I picked up the phone and I heard her voice. I go, a pretty girl. What are the chances of me getting phone calls from 3 girls that sound pretty over the course of 10 or 15 years or however far apart these lawsuits were? And by the third time, I'd kind of clued in on what it was doing. Because what happens is if you get injured at a job site and a pretty girl calls you up, Pretty girl calls you up. I don't know how it would work with women. Does it sound like Clint Eastwood? Does it sound like a stud? Do they get their hunkiest guy to man the phones? I really do believe, and there's no confirmation of this, that if they see it's a man's name they're calling, they get a pretty girl or a young girl to call up. Because what happens is, let's say, for example, I'm calling, and you're just making this up, right? Because I don't know exactly a circumstance, but let's say that I injured my arm at work. I injured my right arm at work, picking up something that was way too heavy. My boss said, you need to move that. You need to get it out of here now. Don't have time for a pallet jack. I was like, oh no, because I'm really good with pallet jacks now. No, we don't have time. Pick it up, and it's just way too heavy, and I end up pretty badly injuring my arm. It's going to take more than a couple days. And I end up injuring my arm in some way. A pretty girl calls me up a week or two later, and she asks how my day's going, and you go, oh, doing great, doing good, because that's just a natural reaction. She scribbles that down. And then they start asking you about the incident, and at that point, you're kind of on guard, because you realize, okay, they are looking for anything to explain away this injury. So if I said my boss told me she needed this heavy box moved very quickly, I saw that it was 80 pounds, and I know you're supposed to do a team lift, and she said it needs to be done now, so I picked it up. She'll look for any sort of thing in that story she can kind of snag on, right? But then it comes to, what are your hobbies? And I didn't know this at the time. I've been asked this question multiple times, and again, it took me probably till the third call for me to figure out what was going on. The first time, pretty young girl calls me, start talking about all this stuff. She says, so what are your hobbies? And I go, and I did totally serious. I was injured. I think this was for a car accident injury. This was the other car insurances people calling me. And they go, what do you do for hobbies? And at the time, I was really into weightlifting. And I go, well, I'm in college right now, and I lift weights, and I like to walk, the opposite of everything. Now, I actually love lifting weights. I just can never find the time to do it. Because you can sit down while you lift weights. I was telling her this stuff, and it was true. It's totally true. But what I didn't realize, and I learned later on, this didn't end up biting me in the butt, because there was enough X-ray and ultrasound or MRIs to show the injury that I had for this car accident injury. And at the time, though, I remember that I realized after the fact that could kind of sink me, right? Because it's not that they would think that I'm lifting weights now. They knew I was injured, but they would make the argument, well, he's a weightlifter, so this injury could have been in the gym. We got the ultrasound, we got the MRI showing it is injured, but we can't prove it was a car accident. He might have had it in the gym, and I honestly think my lawyer might have mentioned that to me. Don't tell people you lift weights if you are suing them for physical damage to your weightlifting part of your body. Now, it was true, right? It was true. But when someone asks, what are your hobbies? I mean, obviously, people could have dozens of hobbies. Do you list them all? And was I actively lifting weights while I was on the phone call with her? No. Would I consider it a hobby? Could I consider it in my head? Well, it's not really a hobby. It's a class. These are ways that you're not lying. You're just omitting it. Like, Jason, that is fraud. No, it's not fraud. So, yeah, I mean, you got to be careful, right? Obviously, if you're a professional weightlifter or even an amateur weightlifter, you should announce that. You don't want to lie. But if someone asks for your general hobbies, you know the injury wasn't caused through weightlifting. You know the injury wasn't caused because you took a PE class earlier that semester. The second time, it was some sort of insurance claim for some sort of hand injury. And again, I don't remember the specifics. But, and I won all of these, but here's the thing. It was from some sort of hand injury, and I remembered this. And I wasn't lifting weights even around this time anymore. You go in and out of it. I was talking to a pretty young girl on the phone, and she asked me what my hobbies were, and I said, oh, you know what I like to do? I like to play video games. And I remember thinking, I go, that makes me sound like a big nerd. I'm talking to this pretty girl. And I don't know what she looks like. She has a pretty voice. I remember thinking, oh, what a dork. Nerd, I'm like, oh no, video games? I meant weightlifting. I'm lifting weights right now. I remember going, well, I play video games and stuff like that. And Write. See, I brought that up. I used to write a lot. I used to be a writer. I had some stuff published in the past. And, that's a little less nerdy. Girls like writers. It's a psychological thing. I'm trying to impress a girl. I don't know her at all. And in fact, she works for the people who are trying to get me zero money. So the bad guys, you're like, no, Jason, they're the good guys. You're the bad guy. You're the bad guy in the story. You're suing everybody. No, I remember thinking, that's dorky. I don't just play video games. I write too. I'm a writer. Girls like writers, right? I remember having this thing in my head and I go, I write too. And I said some other stuff that I was doing, rescuing orphans from burning buildings. And I remember after that thinking, again, I ended up winning the suit anyways, but I thought, well, that's, probably not a great thing to say when you have a wrist injury. Because, again, those things are true, and I said them, but, they'll just say, well, he didn't get the wrist injury from doing this. He got the wrist injury from playing video games and writing. And then the girl drew a little heart next to her notes. She's like, what a hunk. Oh, he loves writing. He's so deep and soulful. Well, anyways, I eventually just learned my lesson. Nowadays, every time I get one of these phone calls, because I don't remember where the last one was a couple of years ago. I got a phone call, this insurance, it's a whole thing. I get a phone call from the insurance company. And this is 100% true. She goes, I've been through 100 of these. So she goes, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do for fun is how they phrase it. So it's kind of like a fun question. And I said, nothing. And there's like this pause and she goes, nothing? And I go, no, nothing. She goes, there's nothing you like to do for fun? I go, watch a movie. Just hit play and sit back and watch a movie. She's like, what? I've become the unbreakable one. I've become the man with no weaknesses, except for the weakness I'm suing you for. So anyways, I remember this. Totally caught her off guard. She goes, so you don't do anything in your free time? I go, watch television. Put in a movie sometimes. And that's when it confirmed for me that 100% that is a loaded question. They use that question. Like my lawyer had kind of referenced it before. Hey man, you got to be careful. Got to be cautious when you talk to these guys. That is a question they use so they can go, the injury, not that he's lying about the injury. It's that the injury was either caused from an earlier event or it was, the setup was done through these hobbies. So yes, you did pick up the boxing. Yes, you did hurt your back. But because you were weightlifting, because you were doing all of this other stuff, your back was already weak anyways. You'd already had years of issues with your back, blah, 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 blah. But at the time, and that was 100% true, right? And here's the thing, that's the unsexiest answer you could ever give a woman. When I'm trying to pick up on some girl, and she asks, what do you do? I do not say, I just sit and watch television and occasionally put in a movie. It was like the least physical work possible. It wasn't even like, oh, I type into Amazon different movies this week. Nope, I just hit play and then sit there. It's the unsexiest answer you could ever give anyone, even to like a girl who's into movies and stuff. You're picking up at your film critic class. She's like, really? That's all you do? Yep, just sit there and change the channel. Requires too much dexterity. I just sit there. I used my powers against her. My powers of being a lump. Now here's the thing that was true. At the time, I was just watching movies and watching television. I didn't really play a lot of video games. And I stopped writing. Like, I was in a deep depression. This was before the podcast, right? Where there was quite a few years I was just sitting there going, what is up? Like, why is this all that what is up? Like, I'm so depressed. I better watch another movie, which I do find enjoyment in movies. I'm not knocking that. But that was probably the first time she got an unsexy answer. Or more importantly, an answer she couldn't use against me. Because I wasn't suing because of ocular damage. It was suing because of some sort of physical injury that had happened. Again, I don't remember if it was work-related or car-related. Probably work-related. But, yeah. So those are my tips. Jason, that's one tip. One tip. It sounds barely legal. You're like, if you don't outright lie, it's not a lie. One thing that I've learned, I watch a bunch of those police interrogation videos. I watch a lot of police, like real life police stuff. This is something I didn't know. I still learn new stuff. When they say everything you can and say will, when they're reading you Miranda rights, the officer will say anything you can and say will be used against you. It does not mean they will ever use it for your defense. If you say something that's a perfect alibi and then you forget to bring it up another time, you say something, no, that can't be. At that time I was across town, and then for whatever reason, you don't remember that detail, but the cop does, it's in their written record, they have no obligation to turn it over to the defense. And the prosecution has no obligation to bring it up during your trial. If you say something during your interrogation that would actually help you, but then you don't bring it up again, the police have no obligation to help you. Go, well, he did say that he was there at this particular moment. So that would help. Maybe it wouldn't get him off, but it might help. Will be used against you. What is it again? You have the right to remain silent. Everything you say can and will be used against you. Against you, not for you. Doesn't matter what you say. I also realize this. You have to say, like in America, we have the right to remain silent. That's the beginning of the Miranda warning. I have the right to remain silent. There was a guy, I'll see if I can dig the case up. I don't remember the name or the date, but it's fairly recent, within our lifetime, probably in the past 10, 15 years. Guy was arrested. He was accused of murder. They were questioning him, asking him questions about the murder. He's in the interrogation room. And at a certain point, he just stops talking. Well, what happened was, he goes to trial, and the cops say, we take it by the fact that he stopped talking, that he was confirming his guilt. The way a guilty person will just kind of shut down. We took it at that point that he was guilty. That was a sign of his guilt that he stopped talking. Now, that man's defense, his lawyer, they argued, what are you talking about? No, he has the right to remain silent. He can actually just stop talking. If you stop talking, that doesn't mean you're actually guilty. The judge in that case ruled that no. He had to say, I am invoking the right to remain silent. If he had said that, then the interrogation would have ended. And the cops could not have said, well, we took his silence as guilt. Because that's the way the cops were presenting it to a jury. And the defense was like, no, he has the right to remain silent. And the judge goes, no, you actually have to say, I am invoking my right to remain silent. And then you can present to the jury that then he asked for his right to remain silent and the interrogation ended. And the man did end up was found guilty. Now, he could have actually done it. I don't know. But that's really interesting. You actually have to say it. If you don't say it, the interrogation goes on, and the cops will use that as proof of your guilt, because only a guilty man would stop talking. An innocent man would continue to plead his case. However, you shouldn't talk to the police at all, ever. No matter, they'll go, that's quite rude of you. Or if you really want to help, if you're really concerned about this, you would let us know. An innocent man would talk to us. Never talk to a cop without a lawyer. Never talk to a cop without a lawyer. I mean, I've had buddies who are cops and stuff like that. I mean, obviously we kick it, but cop comes and knock on your door, says, hey, do you mind if we come in and talk to you about... No. Well, hey, that's the funny thing, right? Do you mind if we come in? And you say no. They go, you're saying no, I don't mind. And if they go, do you mind if we come in? And you say yes. They go, oh, he was saying, yes, I can come in. That is phrased that way to get so police can come in your house for any reason and tell the jury, oh, they gave us permission to come in. You have to say, when they go, do you mind if we come in? You are not allowed to come in my house. I'm going to talk to a lawyer. If you have any more questions about it, da-da-da-da-da-da. That question is phrased in such a way that if you say yes or you say no, they can still walk into your house. And it's all mental jujitsu. Do you mind if we come in? You can say, yes, I do mind. Or no, you are not allowed to come in. But if you don't get that second sentence out, as their hand is pushing that door ever so slightly forward, and then you start pushing back, now you got a resisting without violence charge. And then put it all in there. And then the jury goes, wow, why would an innocent person resist? Why would an innocent person not talk? Don't ever take a lie detector test because they're not admissible in court anyways. But it will be used against you. If you don't take it, it'll be used against you. If you take it and fail, it'll be used against you. You go, what if I didn't do it? What if I take it and I pass? Here's the thing. It's all up to interpretation of the interpreter. There's no such thing as a lie detector. And you can have 3 different technicians ask the same questions of the same person, and you will get probably 2 technicians agreeing with each other and the third one going, no, I didn't see that. So depending on who does it and when, they could say you were lying or telling the truth. There's no science behind it. It's like looking at the little needle and him going, well, I'm reading this baseline and I'm looking at this. But other people can look at it and they disagree. It's not science. If it was science, it would be admissible in court. DNA is admissible in court because 100 different DNA scientists can look at the same chart and go, yes, this DNA has a 98% chance to be this guy's. So if you refuse to take it, they can't use it at all. If you do take it and you fail, for the rest of your life, people will go, well, he did fail that lie detector test. Even if you were found innocent, and because you were innocent. The wrong tech on the wrong day was looking at it and go, no, he's lying. He's showing some deception. Again, they don't know exactly what the lie is, right? They just go, were you at the store last night at 11 p.m.? And you say, no. And you're a little nervous, and that technician is just, he's reading. It's like reading tea leaves. It's inadmissible in court. Never take a lie detector test. It can never help you. It will always hurt you. If you fail it, you're toast. And there is a chance you're going to fail it. Not because you're lying, but because of how the technology is. You'd be better having, hey, can we get a psychic in here with a crystal ball? It's that level. Never take a lie detector. You're like, Jason, what are we, 50 minutes in and you're finally getting to some true crime content? Keegan and Tab, I think we're going to have you back for Monday's episode to ride that Carpenter copter around. But, yeah, I wanted it to be a short episode. I don't know why I always do this to myself. I had a really cool story about a haunted basement, but we're not going to get to that. Just this. I mean, actually, what's funny is that sounds disappointing. I'm more disappointed that I didn't get to tell the second story. I thought all of this stuff was interesting. I guess, Jason. Next time, I like that story, and I think it'll give you guys some advice. You go, Jason, you had one tip. Beware of pretty young girls, which you don't even know if they're pretty or young. And the stuff about the cops and the ending, which all of a sudden you just threw into there. Don't trust the cops. Don't trust the lie detector test. Don't trust the women who call you on the phone. No, yeah, but see, the thing is, there's all those little tricks. That's kind of what I'm getting at. It's super fascinating because you don't think you're ever going to come across them. I don't imagine in a million years I'll ever involuntarily be hooked up to a lie detector. I think at some point I thought, oh, that would be cool to be hooked up to a lie detector. They had like game shows and stuff like that. I wouldn't go within 10 feet of one nowadays because they're just junk. They're junk. But, you don't think you're going to meet people who are going to try to verbally. I remember one time a long time ago, a good friend of mine, Iris, who listens to the show, she was in the car when this happened. Me, her, and this other girl, and we'll give her a fake name too. Let's call her Judy. We're driving through Sacramento. I was so tired, and I'm in the back seat. Well, no, and I was in the front seat. Judy was driving. Iris was in the back seat. I mean, listen, we were all just kind of, they wanted to go do something. I just wanted to sleep. They go, hey, Jason, you want to come hang out with us? Fine. Is there a bed involved? Is there some sort of couch, some sort of box I can curl up with? It has a blanket in it. We're driving around, and I remember just being so tired, and Judy goes, hey, I know that car in front of me. That's so-and-so. That's Bobby. We'll call him Bobby. She goes, let's follow him as a joke, as a prank. I'm like, does he live at a Motel 6? Is that where he's going? Can I get a room? So they start following him, and they're like being super obvious about it. They're not trying to be mean. They're not even really trying to scare him outside of. Eventually, Bobby will go, why is that car following me? And then realize it's Judy driving. And then he goes, oh, and then they pull over and talk. That's kind of what they thought was going to happen. Well, what really happened was eventually she's following him for a while until a police car lights us up from the back. And I'm like, oh, because listen, I have police officer friends. I don't have any, I've had friends who are police officers, but I've, definitely had my own issues with law enforcement. I'm sitting there and I'm fuming. Oh, I'm wide awake now. I'm fuming. And I don't know if this story's going to go over that well, but anyways, so what happened was Bobby had called the police and said, there's this car that's been following me for like 20 minutes. And they're like, do you know who it is? He goes, no, I don't. Because all that he really saw was me. And we had never met before. He just saw this big guy sitting in the passenger seat of a car that's being pretty obvious that it's trying to follow him. So the cops pull up and they start talking to Judy because she's driving. And this is not something they're supposed to do. Technically, this is illegal, but you don't argue with police over stuff like this. It's just not worth it. One of the guys goes, talks to Judy. Iris is just in the back seat, probably pretending to be asleep at this point. I don't remember, but I was fuming. And a cop came up to the passenger side window and he goes, can I see your ID? Now, I wasn't driving the motor vehicle. There was no reason, no legal reason why he could even request my ID. I had committed no crime. I'd done nothing wrong. It was just in the passenger seat of a car. But I don't want to get hauled downtown. Because I know that's the other option, right? I tell him no. He's going, well, listen, we have a reasonable suspicion that a car has been following a guy and we don't know who you are. So who are you? We don't know who you are without your driver's license, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm either and listen, because I'm a big guy, I realize that any confrontation with the police, I'm going to get tased much quicker than the average person. Because I'm just a larger threat. And I understand that. I'm not trying to be a threat to the police officers. I'm trying to go to bed. But I just know that, right? That's just something you know. You also know because I'm a big guy, I got to do the 2 handcuffs behind the back. Otherwise, my arms get pinched. I've never had before we continue, I've never been in handcuffs, but I understand the physics of handcuffs, maybe not pallet jacks. So, because you got to be on a cop's good side because you want the 2 pairs of handcuffs, I could have made a big stink about not having to give my ID because I wasn't driving the car. I haven't done anything wrong. Call your sergeant, get him out here. But I just wanted to go to bed. But I also know, when you interact with police, you don't know which way it's going to go. So he goes, can I see your ID? And I understand that legally he's not supposed to ask me that. He doesn't have a right to see my ID. Whatever. I pull my wallet out. I give him my ID. And he walks away. And at this point, the cop stopped talking to Judy. And she walked, and the cop that was talking to Judy also walks back. Now, I'm good friends with Judy and Iris. Like I said, Iris listens to the podcast to this day. We're sitting in that car, and this might not age well, right? This might not be a great comment. Iris might go, I don't remember any of this. I'm sitting in that car, and I turn around to Judy and Iris, and I said, if they pull me out of this car, when I get out, I'm beating both of you up. They're like, what are you talking about? And I go, just watch. And the reason why I said that, why I threatened to beat him up, was because I wouldn't be in this situation at all. I'd be in a bed somewhere. But because they were goofing off trying to follow this guy to scare him, but not make him super scared, I would have been fine. I wouldn't be, whatever situation is about to unfold, it is because of you two and your decisions. I just wanted to rest. And that's why I told him, if I get pulled out of this car, I'm beating both of you up. Now, I'm having to edit this in. This is something that I forgot to say originally. And you guys were like, why is she going to beat these girls up? No, they're friends of mine. But what I'm saying is that they shouldn't have been goofing off. They shouldn't have been goofing off. Because they were goofing off, I might get pulled out of this car. Right? So that's why. Jason, you still threatened to beat up 2 of your friends. Well, you'll have to listen to the rest of the episode. Did I? Find out. Like I said, I'm recording this after the fact, but I'm editing it in right here. And so the cop who had my ID, this is getting to a point, right? The way you frame questions. The cop with the ID, he took my driver's license, Jason Carpenter. It has all my information on it. He goes, he runs it. He comes back And he's holding my driver's license and he says, "So, Jason, are you still gang affiliated?" And this is the trick. If you say no, the way the question is phrased, it means that I used to be. Because when they ran it, it must have come up as some sort of gang affiliation. Now, I don't know what gang. I've never committed crimes with any gang, or technically any crimes ever, right? Never. But definitely I was never gang affiliated. But again, I'm somewhere in their database showing that. Now, I had friends who were in gangs. I mean, definitely, it wasn't that I didn't know any gang members. I knew a lot. I knew a lot of gang members. So my name might have got mentioned here, there, whatever. I don't know why. Again, right? Because I never did nothing. But the way he phrased that question, that if he goes, "Are you still gang affiliated?" If I said no, that means, well, then you used to be. Because I asked, "Are you still gang affiliated?" And obviously I'm not going to say yes, right? Because I'm not. I've never been in a gang. I've never been in a gang, any sort of criminal organization. But I must have popped something on their background check. And I go, oh. He goes, "Are you still gang affiliated? You still running with those guys?" And I just looked at him with probably the bitchiest look I've ever had. I mean, total like mean girl look. And I go, "No." Because I knew that it was a trick. I knew no matter what I answered that he was going to pull me out of the car. But maybe my mean girl attitude scared him off, or really probably what it wasn't worth it. Because what happened was, he gives me my driver's license back. The guy who called the cops, he's like sitting a bit ahead of us on the road as well. I think we pulled off into a parking lot. At this point, he goes, "Oh my God, that's Judy. Oh, Judy. Oh, she must have just been pulling a prank." He took until the cars were stopped. When he recognized her car, recognized her. Oh, yeah. So at that point, the cops are like, "Okay, it's not even a threat. This was a prank." Now, could they have pulled me out of the car? Yes. Would I have gotten out of the car? Yes. Would I have said anything more than what I had said, which was basically no? No, I would have just, so what are you doing out? What are you doing out tonight? What are you doing out tonight? Where are you going? I invoke my Fourth Amendment right, or I invoke my right to silence, or give me a lawyer, If they pull you out of the car, obviously situations changed a bit. Generally I'm very cordial when I get pulled over by the police. I've had far more good interactions with police than I've had bad interactions. But I get stopped all the time by the police. Wherever I go, police are always stopping me. Jason, if you're listed as having a gang affiliation, I'm not affiliated with a gang. I never have been. Yeah, you got to be careful, right? A cop pulls me over. He goes, "You know how fast you were going?" Not really. Right? Maybe you don't. If you lie, you're lying. If you tell the truth, you'll be getting a ticket. But generally, I'm cordial to traffic cops. I don't have anything in my car. I'm not worried about it. Do you want to search my car? I'm assuming you're not going to plant anything in it. Because if you say no, you're just going to be there for an hour until they bring the canine out anyways, right? So I've had cops shine their flashlights in my car and stuff like that. I've been pulled over for matching descriptions of people. Just real quick, pull me over, flashlight, check. Okay, so you're good to go. And I go, "What was that?" And he goes, "You've matched the description," as the cop is running back to his car. Someone must have done something. And they never found out it was me. I got away. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, so I don't actually know what this episode is. It kind of turned into there's no illegal stuff in this episode, just so we're clear. I'm not actually affiliated with any gangs, despite the database of the Sacramento Police Department saying otherwise. I'm not gang affiliated. And I've never committed any sort of fraud, nor did I give you tips on how you can commit fraud. I'm just telling you, be careful with the way people who are trying to trip you up. They are specialists. They've trained on how to use these words. They use them as almost an open sesame. Because I can guarantee you a lot of people got their very rightful workman's comp claims denied. Not because they lied, but because they were probably too honest. You actually did get injured at work. You never had an injury before this. You got injured at work, but you happen to say that, "Well, I love to garden on the weekends. I really love to garden on the weekends." and you injured your knee at work, and they go, well, listen, she's spending every weekend on her knees out in the dirt. There's a lot of rocks out there. People lose these workman's place. People lose these lawsuits because of that. Don't lie. You don't have to be don't lie. But just know that the people you're talking to, they are adversarial. They might be good people in real life. Like I said, I've had police officer friends, but they're adversarial in that moment. And so you have to realize that and be super cautious. And sometimes the best option is to just say nothing. Obviously, if your insurance company's calling you on the phone, you can't just go, I can't hear you. What? Static. What? Can you hear me now? But just be cautious what you say. So this episode, my head was a half hour long where I talked about a lawsuit for maybe 10 minutes and then told a cool ghost story, and instead it turned into this. I hope it was entertaining. Maybe you're going through a lawsuit right now. Maybe I just saved you tens and tens of thousands of dollars that you otherwise would have lost. And if one person listening to this is being sued right now, you're welcome. Oh, and I do want to add this part. I actually finished recording the episode and I realized I left out the most important part of that cop story. So, like I said, I just wanted to go to bed. I just wanted to sleep. I was so tired. And you go, Jason, oh my God, we were on pins and needles. Who cares about the police thinking you're a gang member? Who cares about all this legal advice? Did you get to sleep? Well, anyways, after all of that, Bobby goes, hey, you guys want to come hang out at my house? And they're like, yay! And I was like, does it have a place I can lay down? I'm not picky. And I ended up, this was like just to top off a not fun night for me. Yeah, there's a place that you can lay down. It's in the living room. So Iris and Judy are sitting there talking to Bobby, and I don't care. I can fall asleep at any noise volume. But there was like this big beanbag chair that there's the only place to really lay down, unless I wanted to lay down right on the carpet. But I remember as I was walking towards this beanbag chair, I go, oh no, and I start to smell that unmistakable smell of cat piss. Like, you didn't smell it when you first walked in, but as you got closer and closer to this big beanbag chair, the smell became more and more intense, and I realized that right next to this beanbag chair was a giant kitty litter box. It doesn't matter if it's big or small. It's this giant kitty litter box. And I go, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, I can fall asleep with any noise level or any light level, but smell levels? And I thought, well, we'll see. I'm so tired. And I laid down on that. Here's the thing. Here's a little science tip for you. If you're standing up and the cat pee smell is strong, let me tell you this, it's nothing compared to when you're laying down next to it. I guess the gas settles. It's heavier than air. Because I'll tell you, I laid down in that giant beanbag chair and was instantly overcome with cat piss smell. It was like a booby trap that had been, the cops put it there. They're like, he may not be gang affiliated yet, but this will drive him mad. This will drive him right into the arms of the Bloods. I plopped down on the beanbag chair and it stank. It smelled like the strongest cat piss urine odor you could ever imagine. But I was so tired, I went to sleep. I did get not a good night's sleep, but I did sleep a bit. When I woke up, I had whiskers. I was like, I'm too close to the source. So yeah, I almost forgot. I had to edit this in. I almost forgot the ending to that. It wasn't a horrible night. I've had far worse nights, but it wasn't a fun one. Maybe if I had slept in a nice bed, it would have had a happier ending, but the cat piss beanbag chair, nah, it's no way to end your night. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a great weekend, guys.